Hi everyone, my name is Richard Bailey. I am the chief editor and founder of motorsportm8.com, which is one of the Asia Pacific's largest specialty motorsport websites. We've been in existence since 2009, and I'm very excited to talk to the LTF1 team.
Hi guys, welcome back to LTF1. We're here with Richard today, as you've just heard. Thank you, Richard, for coming on. Today we're going to be asking him some questions about his journey into the world of F1 and maybe some advice that he's got for those of us on our way up. So first question, when did you first think? When was it first going from a dream to a bit of a reality that I might end up working in F1 now?
Yeah, it's a good question. It probably took me until I was in the paddock to actually maybe realize, oh hell, I actually could do this. But the journey to get there was quite quick in a way. My passion for Formula One and how I got into writing all about it stemmed from the giant collection of books, which is really only about half of the collection that I have sitting behind me. I was a voracious reader of Formula One books, and if there was, I'd be going through thrift stores and specialty bookstores and the like, sort of trying to dig up titles that I didn't yet have in my possession, and would just go through them. And invariably, being a bit of an F1 nerd as I was since I was a little kid, and having a pretty rich history of the sport sitting in my brain, you probably start to pick up on some of the errors and the perhaps sloppier elements of writing, and I find myself kind of critiquing a few of what my dear peers had been writing over many years. And my other half said to me one day, like, why don't, if you think you can do a better job, why don't you go and do it? So for a birthday present, they bought me a WordPress URL, which I think was just a Richard's F1 blog at the time, because that's what it was. And just got told, go ahead and just write some pieces. So I started writing as of the 2009 Singapore Grand Prix and was just sharing it with a few mates. And then from there, it just grew and grew and grew. And we took a punt. The Australian Grand Prix in 2012, the FIA had opened up its classifications and its accreditation process to allow online platforms and websites to be able to apply for accreditation for the first time. They still gave you a list of criteria that was 1.5 miles long, and I probably only ticked a quarter of the boxes. But if you don't play, you don't win. So I threw the application in. By that point, I think we had two journalists in the team, so it was myself and someone else, and lo and behold, we both happened to land up not only achieving accreditation but actually getting international level accreditation, which allowed us into the paddock. So we booked a flight down to Melbourne and off we went, and turned up to what I'd liken to be the opening of an envelope. I think, we go to every single press event that there was there to try and get the experience and sort of be a part of the action. But yeah, in truth, it hit home on the last day of that Grand Prix weekend, and I got into the media centre very early. And sitting in the same row as me was David Tremaine, who's one of the lifetime members of the FIA Media Corps, and someone who I'd had an enormous number of his books, and he and Joe Sayward were and are still working together. And Joe Sayward was also one of my heroes, but I was extremely intimidated by him at the time. So I went and introduced myself to David, I think within 30 minutes he'd agreed to do an interview with me, because I said, look, I'd love to have a chat with you and just get some advice and some guidance and a little bit of mentorship if you were open to it. And he said, yeah, give me half an hour. And he jumped on my website, read a couple of the driver interviews and the like that I'd done at that point, and And then, 30 minutes later, we did a 2-hour end-to-end, completely off the cuff, totally unprepared interview, which was a great deal of fun. And he shared some of his stories and gave a ton of advice, and then became a mentor to me from that particular point onwards. So I probably owe a lot of our subsequent success to the advice that he and a number of his colleagues gave. But that was probably the pinch me moment at that point of, okay, I think I can actually do this, rather than just sort of feeling like a little bit of a, someone that gate crashed a really exclusive party at that point.
That was still a little ways into your journey, right? Because I think I saw a video on Motorsport M8's YouTube channel that you had done thousands of articles by that point, many interviews. So it wasn't as if that accreditation just dropped into your lap. You had to work quite hard for it.
Yes, it was years of hard graft to get there, and probably a lot of pounding flesh and networking and throwing emails left, right, and centre to try and grab particular media opportunities. So I'd done, by the time we got into Grand Prix paddock, I'd probably done various media events and the likes. We've done, red carpet for the Senna documentary premiere, for example. So I'd become very used to being able to do interviews, essentially unplanned vox pop. You've got 30 seconds to interview someone, and then also your longer form interviews, which then become the bigger write-up. So they were, you were writing constantly. You've got to build a really substantial portfolio that shows, not just the history of how long you've been writing for, but I think the different types of content and articles that you are putting together. Certainly to meet the FIA criteria, they're looking for range. They're looking for your ability to be able to do an interview, to write an analysis piece, some degree of opinion, provided it's favourable to them, and then they're just sort of the mix in the mix across the board there. So you become skilled, I think, across as many facets as you can, and ultimately, the quality of the work, the depth and the breadth of the work is what gets you in. But yeah, plenty of hard graft along the way too.
And what was that like? Because I assume that wasn't your full-time day job. You would have had something else going on. So what was it like trying to juggle the?
Yeah, to juggle the two, yes, because this is, as glamorous as a profession as journalism is, particularly on the print and the website, the money's poor. You've got to really try and find your niche, and most that are ultimately successful land up getting in with bigger agencies. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, if you look within the media core today, from certainly a print and written perspective, overwhelmingly they are writers from, or a substantial chunk at least, are writers from the Motorsport network that actually cover motorsport.com, autosport, racer.com, and various other subsidiary publications. So there tends to be a huge cohort of them. And then there are smaller groups that will tend to turn up, but they're also big players from a media landscape perspective. So as an independent, self-funded player, which I was, it is more challenging to get in. So I was using the income of my full-time job. I was actually in senior management with a very large travel multinational, crisscrossing the globe in my work hours, and then writing about motorsport and Formula One in my non-work hours when I could kind of squeeze it through. So yeah, you learn the art of being able to balance it, and kind of being up in all sorts of strange hours to be able to fulfill your passion. But if you're enthusiastic enough about it, you will make the time to be able to do it. But yeah, at times it was a bit of a challenge. I think an added complication is being out here in Australia. We're very much at the wrong end of the world in terms of being able to effectively cover many Grand Prix. There's in a normal calendar, and certainly 2020 was not that, but in a normal calendar, there's 4 races that would be at a time zone that's actually friendly to Australian viewers, and then the rest of the time you're getting up at some god awful hour to watch the race, and then try and write about it from there. It's much easier if you're on the ground, obviously, but there's quite a bit of cost and logistics involved in being able to do that.
So we'll end this part one with a last question. What would your one piece of advice be for someone starting out?
I think a passion, you know, I came from a non-qualified background from a riding perspective, and now, you know, we have huge reach and audience and ultimately quite a bit of cred in what we do. So you don't necessarily need a journalism background, although I'd argue very much if you want to pursue it professionally and to advance into doing this work full time, as a number of our alumni have been able to do now. I think the qualification element would be helpful, particularly if you're looking at print or web. And I think tenacity and persistence are key drivers there. You've got to get used to being able to handle rejection and critique, and, you know, folk turning around saying no. You know, you can't expect as a brand new cadet startup here that Ferrari, for instance, are going to give you an interview, you know, one-on-one with one of their drivers. I can tell you right now that's not going to happen. I've been doing this now for 12 years. It still hasn't happened. But many of the other teams will actually grant you that, you know, if you've got the right chops and the right passion and experience behind you. So you've got to start at the ground floor and work your way up, and be prepared to put in the hard yards to get there. And passion is the other key thing that you need to have under your belt, and being able to demonstrate that too.
Well, I think this video hopefully will help and or inspire a whole load of young people that are coming up and trying to get to where you are right now, myself included. And we've got part 2 coming for you guys on the way, so stay tuned for that. That'll be out next week. But for now, Richard, thanks for talking to us and coming on and sharing a little bit of your advice.
My pleasure.
Thank you.